Good morning, everyone. We're going to be reading Tasi's Gift, A Tale of Samoa by Tamara Montgomery and illustrated by Joseph D. Dodd. This book is from the Calabash Books Honolulu Press. It's called Tasi's Gift, A Tale of Samoa. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean are the islands of Samoa. On one island called Togafau lived an old man. He was known as Grandfather Tasi, and he was the most famous bowl maker in all of Samoa. Many things made him happy, waking up to the morning songs of seabirds soaring offshore, watching flying foxes leave the trees at dusk, and counting the stars in the dark Polynesian sky. What made Grandfather Tasi happiest were the visits of his granddaughter, Tuala. One day when Tuala came to visit him, he said, "Today is an important day. Today we must go to the rainforest to cut the ifilele tree to make a beautiful big bowl for the matai, the new chief of our village." After packing lunches of fish and coconut, Grandfather Tasi and Tuala left for the rainforest. When they passed through the village, families were preparing for the Fiafia celebration. Pandanus trees were being dried for weaving fine mats. Mulberry tree bark was being pounded for the siapo cloth. Coconuts were being husked to make drinking cups. Everyone called out, "Talofa!" It was an exciting time. When they arrived at the rainforest, Grandfather Tasi said, "We must find the ifilele tree with the biggest trunk." Together they searched and searched. Suddenly Tuala pointed excitedly, "Look, in the ferns!" What do you think Tuala saw? There was the biggest ifilele tree Grandfather Tasi had ever seen. "It will make a fine bowl," he said, and he gripped his axe with both his hands. Tuala watched as chop! Away flew the flying fox and seabirds. Away crawled the singing nails and the rhinoceros beetles. Away ran the rats and the geckos. Away scurried the millipedes and the centipedes. Crash! Down came the tree. Tuala felt sad that the animals were losing their homes in the big tree, but she knew they would find new places to live in other ifilele trees. Sometimes she picked up the geckos and the millipedes. She liked the tingly feeling when they curled in her hand and crawled through her fingers. She never hurt the animals, for Grandfather Tasi taught her that all living things were her friends. After cutting a big piece of the tree with his axe, Grandfather Tasi started to carve. While he shaped the bowl, he and Tuala sang songs and shared the legends of their village. Grandfather Tasi carved all day. That night, Tuala made a bed of fern leaves. She fell asleep listening to the music of the rainforest, the clicking of the crickets, the chirping of the birds, and the rustling of the little beetle feet moving through the leaves. While she slept, Grandfather Tasi carved. When there were more stars in the night sky than he could count, he said, "Now I am finished. I will bury the bowl in the mud so the wood will change colors." Then he picked up his little sleeping Tuala and carried her out of the rainforest and back home to the village. For 1 month, Grandfather Tasi and Tuala went to the edge of the rainforest to count the phases of the moon. When 1 full moon had passed, Grandfather Tasi said, "Now we can return to the mud pond." and all the animals watched as Grandfather Tasi and Tuala dug the bowl out of the mud. "Look how dark it is," said Tuala. Grandfather Tasi and Tuala left carrying the bowl. When they arrived home, they placed it in the beach valley. Here's the beach valley. This was the biggest bowl Tasi had ever carved. He studied it carefully from top to bottom, inside and out. The bowl was big and beautiful, but it was also very plain. Tuala saw that Grandfather Tasi was worried. "What is the matter?" she asked. "This bowl must be special," he answered. "It must be a bowl like no other." Tuala watched Grandfather Tasi studying the bowl. "Maybe you will know what to do tomorrow," she said. "Maybe," he replied. Then he covered the bowl with siapo cloth to protect it from the salt air. That night, let me show you this. That night, as Grandfather Tasi and Tuala slept, animals big and small, from land, sea, and sky, crept quietly around under the cloth. They had never seen a bowl so big. They had never seen Tasi the bowl carver so worried. The animals liked Grandfather Tasi and remembered how kind he was to them. When he went fishing, he left his extra fish on the sand for the seabirds. When he gathered fruit from the trees, he left some hanging for the flying foxes. He never stepped on centipedes or tried to catch the beetles. He taught his granddaughter to respect the animals. He helped her mimic the song of the seabirds and put the sea stars in deep water until during low tide. Tonight would be the animals' turn to give back to the great bowl carver. What do you think the animals are going to do for Grandfather Tasi? Under the siapo cloth, centipedes slithered around the bowl, scoring little scratches in the dark wood. Beetles etched lines with their rhinoceros horns. Flying foxes, terns, and sandpipers notched the bowl with their feet. Snails and sea stars left the reef to engrave their own designs into the wood. As the shadows of the moon changed, the bowl did too. Ooh. Look at all the different patterns and prints that are going to probably be in the bowl. Soon, everything was covered in the golden glow of morning. All was quiet inside the fale. No one was there, not a bird, not a beetle, not a bat, only a bowl